Okay, hi. My name is Isabel. I'm a junior here at Shortridge. And today we'll be interviewing John Cariani. So John Cariani is a Tony Award-nominated actor and an accomplished playwright. He made his Broadway debut in the 2004 revival of Fiddler on the Roof and received an Outer Critics Circle Award and a Tony Award nomination for his portrayal of Model the Tailor. He originated the role of Nigel Bottom in the Broadway hit Something Rotten and received an Outer Critics Circle Award nomination for his performance. He also originated the role of Itzik in The Band's Visit, winner of the 2018 Tony Award for Best Musical. John has been in several films and TV shows on TV. He is best known as Forensics Tech Beck on Law and Order, and among other shows, he had roles on The Blacklist, Homeland, and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. As a playwright, he is best known for the play Almost Maine, which premiered at Portland Stage Company in 2004, opened off-Broadway in 2006, and has since become one of the most popular plays in the United States and around the world. The play has had thousands of productions to date and has been translated into over a dozen languages. And lastly, John's book, Almost Maine, a novel, which was released March 31st, 2020, has been received very well. He is currently in the middle of negotiations to make Almost Maine a musical on Broadway. John grew up in Presque Isle, Maine, and now lives in New York City. Please welcome John Cariani.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we're going to get right into the questions.
Okay.
So first of all, for those who are interested in seeking a performing career, what is some advice you'd wish you had been given before you started?
Oh, I wish I had, I think the pandemic taught us this. Expect obstacles and expect things to not go your way, because that's much more common than things going your way and then having a life free of obstacles.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my younger years being really angry about how things wouldn't go my way and how there were always things in my way. And it took me until I was about 40 to finally figure out that that's life. That's what's usually happening. Things usually don't go your way. Your car breaks down. You don't have any money. You forgot to my mom once forgot to pick me up after an event, you know what I mean, when I was a little boy, and she was so upset about it and I wasn't, but it was just so funny to see her get so upset. I remember thinking, Mom, I'm totally fine. Like, you forgot to pick me up, but I hung out here and waited for you. Do you know what I mean? So expecting mistakes, expecting obstacles, and expecting things to not go your way makes you a lot better person, I think, because the people who handle those things with grace are the cool people to hang out with, and the people who get mad about it all the time are just mad all the time.
Yeah, cool. So speaking of
obstacles in a big way this year, so I mean, I feel so bad for you because I think this is so much harder for young people this pandemic has been so much harder for young people than older people, because I'm happy for the time that I have to I can't work right now because the show I was in on Broadway got shut down. And so I got to do all the things I never have time to do. So I'm enjoying my downtime and my quiet time. But I feel like for young people, you need to hug each other and sing together and play sports together and spit on each other and kiss each other and do all those crazy things that young people do and you just don't get to. And so you will soon, but I know it's really weird that you haven't been able to, and I feel bad for you. That's all. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so speaking of COVID, how do you think that theater will change to adapt what's happened in the shutdown and everything to come?
Wow, that's a big, big question because everybody's been talking about it this year. I think that it's going to change mostly how Broadway operates. And Broadway's like Hollywood, you know what I mean? Like it's the biggest, but not necessarily the best. And that doesn't mean that it's not the best. I just mean that the best art doesn't necessarily exist in New York. The best theater doesn't necessarily exist in New York. Like Indianapolis has Indiana Repertory Theater, and that's a really awesome theater. And some of my greatest experiences as an actor have been at places that weren't what you would think, hasn't been on Broadway. And it's hard to explain that to people, that just because you're at a high level doesn't mean it's the very best. I think it's going to change. We're going to have to re-examine ticket prices, because the last show I was doing, ticket prices were approaching $200 for a good seat. And then much, much more if you want to pay premium prices. Like we're talking up to $1,000. I think there's something wrong with that, especially for a bunch of people who believe in equality and equity. And I think we're also just going to have to look at the model and how it works. And something that you might not all know is that a Broadway theater, all it means is that it has 500 seats or more. That's what designates a Broadway theater in New York City. And under 500 is off Broadway. And a Broadway show is like a business. If you don't make enough money to keep your business open, you have to close. It's just like a store. Do you know what I mean? Like if you have a store, you can't make enough money, you have to close your store and go out of business. Same thing with a Broadway show. The problem now is that though the shows cost, something like 15 million, $20 million to mount, and they used to cost $1 million or 3 million or 5 million. And figuring out how to rein in cost is going to be the next big step, I think. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think that's my answer, Isabel.
Yeah, that works. So clearly you've been on the stage and on screen, and you wrote Almost Maine. What's your favorite to do out of all of them?
Well, I kind of finally figured out that I just like telling stories, and I will do that however I can. And one of the things I learned when I was young, I did, like in 2002, I did a couple of movies and a couple TV shows, and I worked for a total of about 6 weeks. And I made enough money to live that year on that 6 weeks of work. And I was not happy at all because I like to go to work every day. So I had a lot of downtime, and I didn't know what to do with my downtime. I didn't need to take all the awful jobs I had always had to take, which I've worked a lot of jobs that weren't exactly what I wanted to do. And I shouldn't actually say that they were awful because they weren't awful jobs. They just weren't exactly what I wanted to do. But I've also learned that doing all the things you want to do all the time, that's not really how life works. You spend a lot of time doing things you don't exactly want to do. But I think I just learned that I'm interested in telling stories. And when I wasn't acting in a movie or a TV show at that time, I realized I wanted to tell stories, and I really started focusing pretty heavily on writing. That's the way I could tell stories without having to be an actor, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of people who are actors are interested in storytelling. And because I was interested in storytelling, I was going to tell stories in any way that I could. I love telling stories on the stage better than I like telling stories on the screen. I think theater's awesome because you can, like, all of the senses are engaged in a play. Like, you can smell a play. If somebody's baking bread in a play, you can smell it. You can see it. You could taste the bread if you wanted to. You could walk up on stage and taste the bread. You'd probably get kicked out of the theater, but you could. You could touch the actors if you wanted to. You would also probably get in a little bit of trouble for that. What's the other senses? Taste, touch, smell, sight, you hear plays. When you watch Netflix, you can't touch the actors and you can't smell if they're cooking. And I just think that's what I love about the theater. I also love the theater because the theater incorporates all art forms: dance, song, language, poetry, prose, what else? Architecture, visual art, sound, music. That's, I think, those experiences live, experiencing all those different art forms live is just more exciting to me. And I also think there's a beautiful simplicity in the storytelling that has to go on in the theater. On Netflix, if you're watching a really complicated TV show, you can rewind and watch it again to make sure you understand it. You don't get to do that in a play. And I love the challenge of making sure an audience of people is following a story one time through. And so I don't know why I told you that, Isabel, but that's my thought on
Yeah.
that.
So before you wrote Almost Maine and you were on these crazy cool TV shows and stage productions, did you ever have times where you hit a block and you didn't know what to do? And if so, how did you get out of that?
All the time, every single day. That's the hard part. I just wish I had known this when I was younger, because I still don't deal with hitting those blocks. People ask me, what do you do when you have writer's block? I have it all the time. And I just auditioned for 4 things and I wanted to get all of them so bad, and I didn't get any of them. And I'm really mad about it right now. It's a fact, I'm mad, and because they should have cast me, and that's just how it goes. Do you know what I mean? And so what do? Do I just get mad and quit? Well, some days I do. I just kind of eat ice cream and sit on the couch and watch Netflix. But I try not to do that more than 1 or 2 days in a row. You know what I mean? And I also have built in ways to help myself when things don't go my way, which is often, because I think when things don't go our way for too long, we deal with mental health issues. You know what I mean? And so, I've learned when I didn't get a bunch of things that I really wanted. I have a friend. Her name is Emily Skinner. She's a Broadway actress and really famous. She's a really well-known Broadway actress, and she and I are pretty close. We did a play together a few years ago, and we have a pact that when things it's not, I wouldn't say that it's a pact, but I tend to go to her right now when I need to go for a walk. I'll reach out and say, can we go for a walk? Can we do something? Just so that instead of me sitting at home and being all mopey, trying to make myself reach out to my friends like Emily, my other friends, just, texting and saying, I had an audition, it went really poorly. And they're like, what can we do? Do you want to go to Dave and Buster's? Do you want to go bowling? Do you want to go to a movie? We can't do those things right now, but those are the things we used to be able to do. Now we can just go for a walk outside. You know what I mean? But that's what I try to do, is build in things I love to do, things that make me feel good. You know, self-care. I'm sure you've all learned about that this year. How do you take care of yourself? You know, I've learned to, like, I used to make mixtapes all the time, actual mixtapes, because I'm old, and I make mixtapes now. They're not mixtapes, but they're like, you know, playlists on Spotify, and I make the order really specific, and I spend time making them because it makes me feel good, you know. So, and it helps me when I'm mad because I didn't get a part I wanted. Oh,
Is that, I,
are you there?
I'm here. I'm sorry I joined late. I'm Zaria Rowinski, and I'm also a junior at Shorridge High. And our next question is,
Oh, hi.
what's your decent. How are you?
Hanging in, hanging in. I'm a little mad right now, as I told you.
Yeah. What's your general advice on exploring different facets of art through multiple mediums, like you have?
Oh, well, I think it's really important, actually. There's a famous playwright named Paula Vogel who wrote a play called How I Learned to Drive. And she's one of the great American playwrights of the past, I would say, like 70 years or so. And she told a story once. I'm not sure if I'm getting this correct. So if you look it up and you're like, that guy was totally wrong, it's just because my memory is wrong. But the story still helps me, if that makes sense. I think she was a sculptor for a long time, but she never felt like she was quite good at it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, she was good at it. Like, you would look at her sculptures and be like, wow, but she never felt like it was what she should be doing. And then she started writing plays, and she felt like she was a sculptor with words for people to say. And I thought that was really interesting, because I think people who are creative, and I actually think all people are creative, and I actually think all people are artists. I don't like the way we've made artists into like these aristocrats. They're like these fancy people who live way up high in the world, and I don't really like that. I think people who find ways to express themselves every day in some way, shape, or form are the people who have good, healthy lives. And that can be, you know, that's, you know, obligations are part of that. You know, like, you know, I have a lot of friends who have, you know, when they have kids who are in high school right now, and there are some challenges during this pandemic, as you all know, with your parents and the relationship between you and your parents in this weird time. One of my friends said that's been her art this year, is like focusing on figuring out how to stay close to her kid when they don't get along very well. But wait, to answer the question, is it Zaria? Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yes, sir.
Zaria? Okay. I think I just bought a whole bunch of art books, not actual art, but art books. I love color and simplicity, so I bought these artworks by Ellsworth Kelly, Philip Rothko. They're these quilters, these women who are quilters from Alabama, Gee's Bend, and it's called, their quilts are called the Quilters of Gee's Bend. They're known as for that, and they have these gorgeous quilts that are asymmetrical and colorful, and they really inspire me. So I'm always like, you know, and I bought these books for like $25. You know what I mean? Like, I thought maybe I'll buy one of those quilts, and they're like really expensive because they're these works of art. And I was like, oh, can't do that, but I can buy a book. And I guess just finding ways to keep myself inspired, finding fun all the time. I like to have fun. If I'm not having fun, I won't do it. I kind of sulk. That's why I love rehearsal so much. Rehearsal is always fun. Even when you're rehearsing something that's not fun, it's fun to be with people and create. And so the pandemic's been a little challenging for me, is that I love to be with people to create. I've had to be by myself to create. And the way I've inspired myself every day is to find play, to find fun. And the way that I've been finding fun is making my silly mixtapes, looking at art that I like, and, you know, I've been watching quite a bit of TV, because TV's so awesome right now. And one of the things I realize is that I don't love a lot of stuff. And instead of being angry about not loving a lot of stuff, I also love some stuff so much. But the stuff I don't love, instead of being a jerk about it and just complaining about it, I've been trying to rewrite it. What would I have done to make it different or better? Or, you know, in my opinion, you know, and that's been a fun way to channel my negativity into something more positive, if that makes sense. In short, it's really important. And I also love sports, and I love the way sports makes me feel when I watch them. I want plays to make me feel like I feel when I watch, like, the NCAA women's tournament, for example, because that's my favorite sporting event. The reason I love women's basketball is because you can see the plays You can see there's great intelligence in that game, and also because women aren't as big and strong, they have to depend on their minds a little bit more sometimes in college basketball, which I just really enjoy because you can see the chess matches between the coaches, you can see the plays. Anyway, I find inspiration there too. So that's a really long answer, Ray. I'm sorry.
So another question here. So Almost Maine is continually one of the most produced plays in high school right now. Was that like, were high schoolers your intended audience, or who did you originally write the play for?
I wrote Almost Maine's a bunch of love stories for people who aren't hot. I'm like a character actor, and if you're a character actor, you never play the main role. You know, you're never playing the person who gets the guy or gets the girl or gets the dream or gets the money or gets the job. You're always playing the person who's helping the other person, who's usually hot, get the guy, get the girl, get the dream, get the money, get the job. And my friends and I are a bunch of ragtag actors, and we just decided that we wanted to make stories for not hot people. We wanted to be in love stories for not hot people because I love love stories. I've kind of been obsessed with love since I was young because I had such a difficult time figuring out who I loved, how I loved, what I loved. And it wasn't what my brother loved, so it was very confusing. And so I had to spend a lot of time figuring that out. I think Almost Maine is my way of figuring it out. And I wrote it for adults because the people in that play are dealing with very adult things. But the plays, I guess, are very simple. They're all kind of inspired by fairy tales. I love the way fairy tales work. They're quite simple, not simplistic, but simple. As a result, I've been told, the play it ran off Broadway, and then it has been done in a lot of professional theaters, but it's blown up in high schools. Part of the reason is because a friend of mine told me that I have to remember that I couldn't figure out why high schools. I was like, kids can't handle this material. It's too difficult. They don't know what it's like to get divorced or have a marriage fall apart or fall in love when you're old and feel like there's no possibility for that. And my friend reminded me that high school students are actually adults. They just haven't finished becoming adults because your minds are actually better than my mind is now. Like, you're sharper than I am. Like, if we had to learn a language, Isabel, Zareta, and me, you would learn it faster than me probably, and it would be annoying to me. Same with music. You'd probably learn it faster than me because my senses are getting slower. I have wisdom though, so you don't have that yet, so I still win, I think. But anyway, and wisdom is awesome, just so you know. But I would say, oh gosh, what was I supposed to be talking about, Isabel? I totally forgot.
No, you're good. The question was that your intended audience?
Oh yeah. No,
yeah.
Absolutely not. I wanted it to, like, there's a great quote from Hamlet. There are more things in heaven and earth than can be dreamt of in your philosophy. That's what happened with Almost Maine. I wanted it after off Broadway. I wanted it to go to Broadway and be a massive worldwide sensation. That didn't happen at all. Instead, it became popular in high schools. And at first, I was like, "What? I don't want my play to be done in high schools. That's awful." And then I realized, after seeing a couple productions, that there's something about high school students that understand the innocence and the complexity of the pain in the play. And that's what a friend of mine helped me realize. When you're in high school, you've basically experienced your first loss, whether it's like a family member, a pet. You've probably had your heart broken or not quite. You probably had some difficulty with love, feeling love. It's very complicated and difficult. Once you've experienced that, you understand it. And my friend pointed out that once you've dealt with love and had your heart broken, and once you've dealt with loss in any way, you are qualified to do any play. And I think that is so interesting because that's what plays are. They're about people dealing with not getting what they want, usually.
Our next question, I don't know if somebody's already asked this yet, but what were your biggest inspirations when writing your own stories and productions, whether it be people or even other stories or genres?
Well, this is something I've realized later, but when I moved to New York, I did a lot of readings of new plays. That's how new plays are developed. They're read in front of audiences, and then audiences give feedback. I felt like all the plays I was reading or working on or watching were about city people, urban people, people who all think the same things, people who have the same politics, which happens to be the politics that I agree, that have the same political views that a lot of these people who write these plays have. But I realized, and I'm realizing this now, I just didn't see any plays about people who worked for a living, who worked ugly, dirty jobs. I was interested in also telling love stories about people who work crappy jobs. Do you know what I mean? Because like Almost Maine's full of people who are farmers and they work in like a lumber yard, and those aren't crappy jobs to them. You know what I mean? But like to people who are in the arts, they are. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't want to. We think that we don't want to see plays about garbage men or police women or stuff like that. And I feel like I was interested in like I didn't love where I grew up when I was growing up because I wanted to get out so bad because it's really far away. It's in the northeasternmost corner of the United States. It was, Interstate 95 is the highway that goes from Miami all the way to northern Maine, and Interstate 95 ends 50 miles before my town, and then there's another 70 miles of Maine after that. So we were just like left out completely. And there was not much to do, but we still had a lot of fun and had a great life. But I couldn't wait to get out. And once I got out, I realized how awesome all the people were up there. It's like potato farmers and broccoli farmers and people who like work in the timber industry and know how to do things that I don't know how to do. And if there's a blizzard, you want those people around. You know what I mean? And so I guess I realized I just wanted to write about basically rural people and make them multidimensional. Because right now in our culture and our art, rural people are nowhere. They don't exist in the arts. They don't exist on television really. And if they do, they're all bigots, they're all racist, and they're all supporters of a certain person for president. And that is true of a lot of those people, but it is not true for everyone. And for all people who are fighting for multidimensionality and the representation of them in art and culture, I just feel like I'm happy to speak up for those people.
Well, I think that is about all the time we have. Thank you so much for
Oh my
letting
gosh,
us
thank you. I
interview.
hope I didn't
It was
talk
such
too
an honor.
I hope I didn't talk too much. I'm sorry, everybody, if I did. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you also.
I appreciate it. Good luck with everything. The world's about to get a lot better. Might be for a while, but it's going to get better.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Zaraya. Nice to meet you, Isabel. Nice to meet you, Ms. How do you say it? I don't know how to say your name. Tukolsky?
Tukolsky, you said it right.